Which one?
Cigar salesman with Mayflower Cigars, and today I am surrounded by 20 LGBTQ plus activists. My first claim is that there is no such thing. Well, I guess the underlying historical part of my claim is that everyone for all of history everywhere until, I'm being generous, 2001, agreed with my view that there's no such thing as same-sex marriage. So it seems to me that marriage intrinsically requires sexual difference. And furthermore, I think that any claim that marriage could be redefined to include same-sex marriage would render the term marriage incomprehensible. Would you say that this is based off of natural law, how Thomas Aquinas defines natural law? There's a good natural law argument for it. I think it's based on more than that. It's more than based on anthropology. Well, then would you say that marriage is a set of legal rights or is it a social role? I think marriage is an institution. I think it's a fundamental political institution. I think, getting back to classical philosophy, that man is fundamentally a social animal. So, I think that the bedrock of politics is the unit of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage.
God, I hate this. He's a smart guy. Knowles is very smart. But that was just so bad faith. That was a good start to the question. I don't know, but he didn't answer the question, right?
Apologies. Well, then would you say that marriage is a set of legal rights or is it a social role?
What is marriage? Is it legal rights or is it a social role? Which of these two things is it? And then he gives a kind of a background building on the idea of what marriage is, but he doesn't actually explore or answer that question at all, right?
I think marriage is an institution. I think it's a fundamental political institution. I think, getting back to classical philosophy, that man is fundamentally a social animal. So, I think that the bedrock of politics is the unit of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage. Well, those, especially the natural law, is just an assertion.
And he lets him get away with that because he should push him on that. I don't know where this guy's argument would go, but I mean, like, if you think that marriage is some sacred institution that's only part of the church, then why the fuck are there any legal rights for it then? It should just be a church thing. It shouldn't be like a state recognized thing, right? I think that's where that argument goes next. I don't know if he would make that one.
The head of the family, and, of course, intrinsic to the family is marriage. Well, those, especially the natural law, is just an assertion without evidence to back that claim, in that we see marriage over time in various cultures has been different things. In which cultures would you say you see same-sex marriage? I did not say same-sex marriage particularly, but the role of it when it comes to family, when it comes to conditions. Because we also say that if somebody is lawfully married, especially in the eyes of the church, they cannot be divorced and then married again. Well, I oppose divorce and remarriage, but I'm making a more modest point than that. I'm just saying that at its core, marriage necessarily involves two different sexes. But how would you prove that?
Like, he speaks so well, but he's already been annihilated. This guy, I don't even know if this guy realizes how much he's annihilated in a really concise manner, too. Because Knowles, it sounds like Knowles was making some, like, almost natural law claim about what marriage is or how it's always been up until 2001. And then this guy very quickly points out, he hasn't even gotten to the same-sex part. And he's like, no, marriage has existed in a lot of different forms for a lot of different reasons. Your claim is completely and totally invalid. And then Knowles responds with some total, like, non-answer. But then this guy just keeps going instead of, like, focusing on, like, okay, so you admit that your original claim is totally baseless, right?
Because all of natural law is just this assertion, I can just as easily say the opposite in that marriage is a set of legal rights.
You keep bringing up natural law. I'm actually speaking even more basically. I love natural law, but I'm speaking even more basically.
More basic than natural law. Okay.
It seems to me that the only way that marriage could have a meaning is if it involves different sexes. Once again, you're defining that meaning, what marriage essentially is a set of rights conferred from two spouses when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to the rights of the children, when it comes to a number of about 1,100 federal and state.
He's getting back to the legal argument, sure.
Okay, then what you're getting at is interesting. It might help us move forward. How would you define marriage?
I would say marriage is a
Ooh. Now he's going to be put on the defensive. I don't like that switch up. Well, I don't know. This guy seems really smart. He's spoke intelligently, and I give people a lot of props when they speak concisely. So he's been intelligent and concise. So we'll see. I bet he can defend whatever definition he puts forth. I hate that Knowles was able to weasel out without answering a single question and having his foundation, pretty quickly destroyed by this guy over here. But
it's a legal contract between individuals when it comes to a set of property laws, when it comes to family law, when it comes to children, and many of the rights that are conferred. And we do see that those rights have been conferred to members of the same sex. And to say that same-sex marriage does not exist, well, you say that marriage entails rights pertaining to children. Well, two men cannot create a child.
So, what a horribly, what a dumb answer.
Yeah. Well, you say that marriage entails rights pertaining to children. Well, two men cannot create a child.
But
two
even
women cannot create a child.
They could literally adopt a child, and you don't have to have every single thing. I don't want to say set theory or whatever, but like a set can contain all these things, but it doesn't necessarily have to have everything to be part of that set or whatever, right? Like that answer is like logically not even valid, or that response didn't make sense. It was stupid.
And you can, there are a number of couples that cannot have children. Sure, so infertility sometimes occurs, and that's so does gay marriage. Well, no, gay marriage cannot occur. I guess, but you're asserting that.
Tautologically, you're not addressing that was an argument. Oh my God. Holy fuck. How nervous is Knowles? This is the first kid in like a 2-hour thing. And he's like, what the fuck? Who is this kid? These aren't the random college kids I'm used to I'm used to debating. Oh no.
Without proof. We see that it does happen in that. No, doesn't mean marriage. You could say that there's such a thing as a square ball. You could say that. But a square ball doesn't really contradiction.
Well, but that's presupposing the definition of a square and presupposing the definition of a ball. We're arguing over what the definition ought to be, not whether or not two terms comport with a thing given some definitions, right? You're a layer removed from the argument.
We agree that people have been lawfully wedded in the eyes of the government, and those two parties are members of the same sex.
No, I'm saying that isn't possible. So laws can assert all sorts of
crazy things. You're asserting that without proof.
Like the law could say that a black person isn't a human being, but that wouldn't be true. That wouldn't make it true.
This is a category, like a black person isn't a human being, but that wouldn't make it true. But like human being is a concept that probably exists outside of government definition, whereas marriage, as we understand it to confer a whole bunch of legal rights and everything, can't really exist outside of some institution that would recognize said legal rights and everything else, right? Like,
Once again, when we get into this Aristotelian view of the world, that's an assertion. Would you agree?
oh my God, actually, no, what a stupid response. There's a knockdown argument for this.
Black person isn't a human being. But
Like, for a long time in U.S. history, black people couldn't even vote. And at one point in time, they were considered 3/5 a person for purposes of voting. So the government literally has defined people insofar as like people are voters, or people are people that are allowed to be counted for representatives in the House, right? For your 3/5 compromise. So the government literally has done exactly this before. Historically, they've literally done this. Like,
That wouldn't be true. That wouldn't make it true. Once again, when we get into this Aristotelian view of the world, that's an assertion. Would you agree? You're bringing up Aristotle. I'm not bringing up Aristotle. Well, I like that Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, in the traditional view of the magisterium of the Catholic Church.
bro, that's like some dirty shit. When somebody's, I feel like Aquinas is like the this is like the guy that religious people like to bring out, because he was like their philosopher who had all his arguments for God and all that shit. When you've got an atheist, I don't know if this guy's atheist, but somebody else is like weaponizing Aquinas against you, that's got to be a bad feeling. It's got to be a bad feeling as a religious dude.
You're bringing up Aristotle. I'm not bringing up Aristotle.
This guy was saying that like marriage is a thing that includes it can include or it can denote like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And Knowles is like, well, what about for people that don't have D? It's like, okay, that's fine.
But just because, a human being, let's say, loses an arm, doesn't mean that human beings only have one arm, or maybe have three arms. We're discussing what component.
Exactly, a necessary component instead of a, yeah.
And that necessary component doesn't come from No. Well, I'll give you my definition of marriage. Absolutely. I think marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman ordered toward the procreation and education of children, and is a secondary matter for the mutual support of the spouses.
Is that secondary matter the legal part, or?
Once again, when we say ordered towards, is to look at the world with these preconceived notions about things. I'm not preconceiving anything. I'm just observing nature as it is. No, I'm just observing nature, and I'm saying that that's what marriage is. Just observing nature, we see that there are same-sex couples. If we go,
yeah, that's how do you even? There has to be a presupposition here. If you're just observing nature, yeah, you can see there are heterosexual marriages and there are homosexual marriages. What is the?
We are observing. No, I'm not saying there can't be same-sex couples. I'm just saying there can't be same-sex marriage. Are there same-sex individuals that have entered into a legal contract that the state recognizes as a marriage? Sometimes the state.
I can watch 10 minutes. I think I can handle 10 minutes of this, maybe. He's so weaselly.
things wrong, as I am arguing.
What is that? Yes.
Sorry, when Knowles says observe in nature, he just means it's a feature of like the universe, something that you can observe that you can see, not that it's like in nature, like in the force or whatever. That's what he means when Knowles is saying in nature here.
Contract that the state recognizes as marriage. Sometimes the state gets things wrong, as I'm arguing. But yes. So there are couples of the same sex that have been wedded in the eyes of the state. Since 2015, the U.S. government pretends that two men can be married to each other. You're basing off of that nothing. You're basing that off of nothing. No, I'm basing it off of the Obergefell decision from the Supreme Court. They're pretending. They're acting as if two men can be married. According to you? No, according to the Supreme Court and the Obergefell decision. Before as if things
no, he's not. Yeah.
exist outside of the institutions that we make. I'm just saying the word has a meaning, and I gave you a very clear definition of what I think it means and what statistically everyone for all of human history everywhere thought it means. And you've given me this kind of jumbled description that keeps contradicting itself. And that's my whole point, is I think it is not possible to define marriage.
How could a Catholic ever pretend that there was a worldwide consensus on what marriage meant? That's such an interesting position for a Catholic to take. What about the Church of England? Like, how could you?
Hey, good to meet you, Mindy.
Mindy, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh, my name's Mason. But
Mason.
Good to meet you. Yeah,
I'm Michael.
Oh, gotcha. Wait, do you have a birth certificate?
Not on me, but I do have one.
Okay. Well, I can't confirm that your name's Michael until I see that birth certificate, just as a defender of objective truth. But we can go more into speaking about marriage.
You could actually, if you have faculties of reason and you say, well, this is the sort of fellow who presents himself, in a credible way.
Bro, he supposes so much. This is so philosophically dirty. Well, if you have faculty of reason, then obviously you'll agree with me because you'll just think the same thoughts that I think. Everything he does is a tautology. Like, he's just, the definition is the thing it is. Like, and how do you know it is the thing that it is? Well, because of the faculty of reason. Well, that's how convenient. You might as well be citing direct, is it special revelation where God reveals things to you personally? Like, you might as well just say that. What the fuck? Like, he's speaking in a more sophisticated manner to basically say it's common sense. That's his whole argument. Marriage is mind dependent, just like gender, and has no intrinsic property. So Knowles cannot make any objective statements on marriage's nature. He wouldn't accept that it's mind dependent, though. It would be a is it a Platonic argument, a Plato argument about? I don't know real philosophy. Fuck you. Like universal forms and shit. These are like features of the universe that maybe God can reveal to us or we can observe. But concepts like marriage, all the things conceptually that exist as part of the religious framework, if every single human being were to die, those things would still exist and they'd be very real. They'd be features of the universe, as real as a tree or as real as anything else. God might reveal these things to us, or we might observe these as part of being religious or whatever. But Knowles would not say that these are mind-dependent concepts. He would say that in the absence of every human, these things still exist. I believe, is what he would say.
I'm asking you to explain the point that you brought up. And so what people usually do is they say, well, look, I'm sure that there were all different types of marriage throughout history all over the world. And what I'm telling you is, there actually hasn't been.
So you're telling me that a Catholic priest are people who created like a certain ceremony within the Mayan culture? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that if you want to listen, I'm happy to tell you exactly what
I'm listening. You're open, Michael.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mindy.
For all
This is a tricky argument by nulls because it seems logically correct. You can't have a square ball, but why can you not have a square ball? You can't have a square ball because they both agree on the definition of square and they both agree on the definition of sphere. So you can't have a square ball, but they're not arguing about whether or not you can have a gay marriage. They're arguing about what the definition of marriage is. He's removed this one level in order to make a compelling analogy, and the analogy is compelling, but only because it misunderstands what the underlying argument is. They're not trying to argue whether or not you can have gay marriage. They're arguing over what marriage is, because if you accept his definition of marriage and his definition of gay, then logically, you can deduce that gay marriage doesn't exist, obviously. But this is I wonder if anybody's going to call him out on this little philosophy trap that he's got here. Show. I feel like do they have like an A team of 25 people? Because holy shit, all of these people are very sharp.
Children do very poorly when they are raised by two men or by two women.
That's an appeal to what a utilitarian approach for a guy who's arguing. It feels like he's arguing teleology. Or teleology, the purpose of marriage. What is the general purpose of marriage? Even if it doesn't always accomplish the creation of, I think the telos is like kind of like this built-in meaning to a thing. The telos of marriage is to procreate and to have a family to raise them. But now he's arguing in a utilitarian sense. The counter to that is, oh, hold on, you're saying that children tend to be raised the best in this way. Therefore, that like in a utilitarian sense justifies your definition of marriage. If there were data then that showed that children were raised better in hedonistic, unmarried environments, would you suddenly change your definition of marriage? Of course he wouldn't. He absolutely wouldn't. He might refuse to believe that logically would even be possible. And he might even just reject the example because maybe for the telos, the purpose of marriage is built in to having good children. And that's like all part of one big, but then it just all becomes like one big presupposed argument and it's boring. I don't know.
Ourselves,
yes,
right?
I can make it very practical for you. Children
teleology? Is it teleology? Sorry, I've only read this word before.
Very poorly when they are raised by two men or by two women. Relative
My
to
understanding.
Also, I don't even think that's true. I'm pretty sure just because of the types of parents that are gay are literally pre-selected by the state. I'm pretty sure outcomes for children of gay people are just better than straight people, but just because of the selection bias there. Any two cockroaches can have kids. Not everybody can adopt a child.
Of the literature on this is that that's not true.
What literature are you referring to?
Oh my God. And he pushes him on give me the study. Damn. In the middle of a debate. All these people that follow these people always accuse me of being a debate bro. I would never, unless we come to some rock bottom, and I'm usually apologetic when I say, like, listen, I don't usually like to push for it. Like, fuck, can you point me in the direction? He's really gonna, what's the study? Damn. Such utilitarian arguments. He's shifted. I don't think I would ever. Also, I can call this out because I'm just sitting here calmly reviewing it and pausing it and listening to it. I don't know if I'd be able to call these out in real time, but like I feel like a simple response would be like, oh, okay, we should probably release all men from prison who have children right now then, right? It's like, well, what do you mean? Well, because aren't you depriving all those children of their fathers? Like, we can find other reasons why a child might not have both parents, but we wouldn't start defining things based on what a child has after birth or whatever. This is a fool's endeavor. I think this is a very sneaky, slimy way of arguing.
Scientific literature, by the way, backs that up.
That's not true.
It is true.
Fact check that, please.
It is true.
Let's let them fact check that on video.
According to the National Institute of Health, numerous studies have found that children raised by same-sex parents fare just as well as kids raised by different-sex parents. I thought it was better because of the adoption stuff. But I examined Michael Rosenfeld's study using alternative methods and found that when compared to traditional married households, children raised by same-sex couples are 35% less likely to make normal progress in school. Douglas Allen re-examined Michael Rosenfeld's study using alternative methods and found that when compared to traditional married households, children raised by same-sex couples are 30% less likely to make normal progress in school. I wonder what that means. Let's find out. Fuck it. Let's go find it. Okay. Michael Rosenfeld, gay marriage adoption study. I use. Oh, he forgot a space here. U.S. Census data to perform the first large sample nationally representative tests of outcomes for children raised by same-sex couples. The results show that children of same-sex couples are as likely to make normal progress through school as the children of most other family structures. Heterosexual married couples are the family type of children who have the lowest rates of grade retention, but the advantage of heterosexual married couples is mostly due to their high socioeconomic status. Have the lowest rates Wait. Heterosexual married couples are the family type whose children have the lowest rates of grade retention. What does that mean? The lowest rate of grade retention. Does that mean being held back? That's a really weird way of phrasing that, if that's what that means. Maybe it's normal for this field of literature and I'm not aware. But the advantage of so this is good, obviously. But the advantage of heterosexual married couples is mostly due to their higher socioeconomic status. Children of all family types, including children of same-sex marriage or same-sex couples, are far more likely to make normal progress through school than are children living in group quarters, such as orphanages and shelters. Okay. Am I typing this incorrectly? Don't use the PubMed URL. Which URL am I supposed to use? Click through to the actual article. What thing do I click? DOI. 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 Paste the DOI. Non-traditional families and childhood progress through school. The census complements 45 empirical studies by including all studies listed in Tasker study rate that examined childhood outcomes. Several more recent studies listed by Wald, all 4 studies listed by Meason and Rauch as the highest quality studies in the field, and all the more recent studies that cite the earlier ones, none found statistically significant disadvantages for children raised by gay and lesbian parents compared with other children. These studies are listed in table form in a supplement posted in Demography's web. Okay, that's a lot of literature that seems to point towards there being no significant disadvantages for children raised by gay and lesbian parents compared with other children, but okay. The uniform finding of no significant disadvantage for children raised by gay or lesbian parents has been convincing to some scholars, although others remain unconvinced. Several points are worthy of comments. First, as the critics have noted, convenience sampling dominated this literature in the past. More recent scholarship has answered this criticism by using nationally representative probability samples derived from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health, as well as studies constructed from a hybrid of probability sampling and convenience sampling. A second critique of the literature, that are the sample sizes that studies are too small to allow for statistically powerful tests, continues to be relevant. The mean number of children of gay or lesbian parents in these studies is 39, and the median is 37. Both numbers would be slightly lower. Studies without comparison groups were excluded. Grade retention, the opposite of normal progress through school, has been increasing in U.S. schools since former President Bill Clinton proposed ending social promotion in schools in his State of the Union address in 1998. Grade retention is an important childhood outcome because retention in the primary grades is a strong indicator of a lack of childhood readiness for school, and effective parenting is a crucial ingredient for in-school readiness. Brooks, Gunn, and Markman argued that the lower school readiness of racial minority children is due in part to parenting practices that differ from the authoritative parenting style found in middle-class white homes. Gould, Brooks, Gunn, and Harris studied grade retention among urban black children and found that some indicators of parental stress, such as unemployment and welfare participation, were associated with increased grade retention for children. In other words, they found childhood grade retention to be a useful measure of difficulties that the students were experiencing at home, identified 3 potential sources of grade retention. Grade retention associated with a more serious problem later in life. Okay. comparison sets. Standard group of homosexual married couples, heterosexual cohabitating couples are a second logical comparison group for same-sex cohabitating. Children living in group quarters, because, okay, dating measure, okay, Because denominators, school populations cover 4 years, but the students can be identified as overage for their grade, come only from the last grade of each 4-year span. The implied grade retention rate is 4 times higher than the observed grade retention rate. Table 1 both shows blah, blah, blah. Wait. According to Table 1, children living in group homes, many of them awaiting adoption or foster parents, had an implied grade retention rate of 34.4%. Children who were incarcerated had a grade retention rate of 78%. Later in this article, I show that the enormous difference in grade retention between children raised in families and children living in group quarters remains even after individual level student disabilities are accounted for. Group homes are going to be like adoption homes, basically, right? One way to gauge the advantage of living with families is to note that adopted children, 10.6% grade retention. Children, okay, who spent the, one way to gauge the advantage of living with families is to note that adopted children, 10.6% grade retention, who spent the 5 years prior to the census living with their adoptive parents, and foster children, 20.6% grade retention with 5 years of residential stability, performed considerably better than children who spent the same 5 years living at a single group quarters address. The performance hierarchy that favors own children, and then in declining order of school performance, adopted children, foster children, and children in group quarters, confirms the longstanding research finding that children do their best when living with parents to make a long-term commitment to the children's development. Oh, I didn't even know there's a difference in this. So a foster child means you just like are leasing them, basically. That's just temporary. And then if you adopt, are most foster children eventually adopted, or is a foster child just like a test drive? Most homeless people are those foster children. Gotcha. Selection bias, wherein the children with the most severe disabilities or children who have suffered the worst abuse are the least likely to be adopted, must also play a role, which unfortunately cannot be quantified with these data. Okay, because they're just going by census stuff, and I don't know if the census would include information about that. The rest of Table 1 shows implied grade retention along several other dimensions. Asian American children had the lowest rates of grade retention, and non-Hispanic black children had the highest. Girls were less likely to be held back in the primary grades than boys. Suburban schools had lower rates of grade retention than city schools, which in turn were lower than rural schools. Household socioeconomic status was a crucial predictor of childhood school performance, and households with income less than 25K, 12.6% of the primary school students were held back, compared with only 5.3%. Okay, unweighted number of children in grades 1 through 8, percentage over age at grades 4 or 8, implied percentage retained. So how many had to be held back? So heterosexual married performed the best, followed by lesbians and then gay people living together, followed by separated, divorced, and widowed women, followed by separated, divorced, and widowed men, then non-married parents, a never married woman, never married men, and then group quarters are going to be fostered kids and everything, I guess. Damn, adopted children do better than stepchildren? Oof. Oof. Actually, I guess a stepchild can be temporary, so maybe. Fuck you. Jesus. Table 3 presents a series of multivariate logistic regression coefficients for normal progress through primary school versus grade retention of the following type. where P sub I is the predicted probability that the ith primary school student was making normal progress through school. The constant term is alpha and beta sub k represents a column of k coefficients. So this means that predictors of making normal progress through school. So the bigger the negative, the higher the chance of not making it through school, I guess. What's the difference between model 1 through 5? Same-sex cohabitating, same-sex divorce, heterosexual cohabitating. Okay. Positive coefficients imply better outcomes, higher probability of making normal progress through school for the students. Negative coefficients imply higher rates of grade retention. Show the raw log odds ratios of normal progress through school for children of all less traditional family types compared with heterosexual married couples. Oh, because so same. These are all compared to heterosexual married couples. Yeah. Model 2 introduces controls for household socioeconomic status. Interesting. So when you control for socioeconomic status, like the heterosexual cohabitating changes quite a bit. Never married women and never married men change quite a bit too. Actually, this one changes quite a bit, right? Half is... Later section, model 3 introduces student gender. No one cares. Model 4 adds control for this. Table 2 design. Okay. So what is our problem with this study? I'll read the next one. Hold on. Or go through the next one. What's our conclusion? Discussion. Children raised by same-sex are one of the most difficult populations in the United States to study systematically because of their small numbers, the geographical dispersion. Census data are far from ideal, and better data would, of course, be welcome. However, currently the U.S. Census is the only national representative data set with a large enough sample of children raised by same-sex. The extent that normal progress through primary school is a useful and valid measure of child development. The results confirm that children of same-sex couples appear to have no inherent developmental disadvantage. Heterosexual married couples are the most economically prosperous and the most likely to be white, the most legally advantaged type of parents. Their children have the lowest rates of grade retention. Parental SES accounts for more than one half of the relatively small gap in grade retention between children of heterosexual married couples and children of same-sex couples. When one controls parental SES and characters of the same-sex couple cannot be distinguished with statistical certainty from children of heterosexual married couples. Okay. How bad would the results need to be for you to change your opinion on same-sex adoption? I don't know if I would change my opinion on it based on results. I mean, unless they were like catastrophic. But I don't know if you have to like guarantee good results for an adoption, especially because I imagine it's always going to outperform them being foster kids or living in a group home or whatever, right? Children not living in group quarters, including children in households headed by same-sex couples, are dramatically more likely to make normal progress through school than students living in group quarters. Any policy that would deny gay and lesbian parents the right to adopt or foster children would force some children to remain in group quarters. A longer stay in group quarters would seem to be contrary to the best interests of the children in recent years. Oh, yes. So scholars have arrived at a consensus that moving children out of the group homes into adopted families should be the goal of public policy. Families, even suboptimal families, are better equipped than the state to raise children. Historical restrictions against interracial adoption in the United States represent one relevant historical precedent for the current debate over the adoption rights of same-sex couples. The prior literature has found no evidence that children raised by same-sex couples suffer any important disadvantages. The same literature has been heavily criticized on the methodological grounds that universally small samples are... Okay. All right. Jesus. Now we have... Is this the response to that study that criticizes it? No, wait. That's the response to the response. What is the... Non-traditional families and childhood progress through school, a comment on Rosenfeld from Douglas Allen, Catherine Pukaluk, and Joseph Price. Okay. We re-examined Rosenfeld's study on the association between child outcomes and same-sex family structure. Using the same data set, we replicate and generalize Rosenfeld's findings and show that the implications of his study are different when using either alternative comparison groups or alternative sample restrictions. Compared with traditional married households, we find that children being raised by same-sex couples are 35% less likely to make normal progress through school. This difference is statistically significant at the 1% level. Okay, and then what did the other studies say? Hold on. Let me see if I can actually understand this. Am I understanding this correctly? So would this say that using Model 1, I'm trying to understand how this association works. Would this say that children have a 27% or 26.7% higher chance of being held back a year with a same-sex couple cohabitating versus a heterosexual married couple? That's what this, according to Model 1, that's what that implies, correct? Where are my study chads? I think those are log odds, not probabilities. Oh, fuck. How do you convert a log odd to a probability? Read this. Why would I read it? Why would I read an article when he wrote a paper? There's research on the effect of family structure. It's 7 pages long. Family structure on child outcomes. Almost none of the research using national representative samples has included same-sex parents as part of the analysis. The main barrier is the lack of a national representative. Rosenfeld used data from the 2000 census, 5% public use microdata sample to examine these. His study concluded with the outcomes of children raised by same-sex couples cannot be distinguished with statistical certainty from children of heterosexual married couples. Wasn't that when controlled? Isn't that only if you control for a whole bunch of other variables as well? I thought he said that in his study. When one controls for parental socioeconomic status and characteristics of the students, children of same-sex couples cannot be distinguished with statistical certainty from children of heterosexual married couples. I feel like that's a very important caveat. I really don't like leaving that out there. I don't know why he would leave that part out, but okay. However, our findings suggest a reevaluation of this conclusion. We present an alternative approach that updates the original study with important estimates of the magnitude of the effect sizes and their corresponding confidence intervals. We also spread a model that allows for robustness checks to the sample restrictions employed in the original study. Our analysis produces two parts. First, we show that the omitted group chosen for the regression itself informs the interpretation of the data because statistical precision is low. The omitted group, is that the group that you're comparing them to? So heterosexual married couples. Characteristics of the children, what does that mean? It meant race, sex, and socioeconomic status, I think were the three that they talked about in here. Model 2 controls for socioeconomic status. 3 introduces gender. 4 is urban, rural, or suburban residents. And I think race was in there too, I believe. An alternative omitted variable leads to the findings that the outcomes of children raised by same-sex couples cannot be distinguished with statistical certainty from almost any other family structure, including well-documented disadvantaged groups. such as children being raised by a never married mother. We also update the original study by providing standard errors and odds ratios, coefficients, these two. Second, we present an unrestricted model of subgroups. So those are much children. These groups are potential co-founders, confounders. The use of a model both eliminates two of the channels through which family structure. Fuck, this is going to be like pretty methodological heavy, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Okay, maybe we'll read the article. This is table 1. It provides a sample means for each of the control variables used in the regression for each of the family structure types. The variables for own child and same location for 5 years or more are used to model the effects of the subset restrictions of interest. Table 2, column 1 merely replicates the findings from the original study when the omitted group was children being raised by heterosexual married couples. Thus, all coefficients in column 1 provide inferences about the differences and outcomes between children raised by heterosexual married couples on the same. Okay, fuck. Holy fuck. Okay. What was he responds to his response. Oh, Jesus. Oh, fuck. I feel like I would have to read through these completely now. Is there a response to his response? So here, this guy's conclusion in the 2012 response to the 2010 study was, together, these findings are strikingly different from those of the original study, and the differences are large enough to be noteworthy. With respect to normal school progress, children residing in same-sex households can be distinguished statistically from those in traditional married homes and in heterosexual cohabitating households. The magnitude of the differences is large enough to be relevant for current and future policy debates, as well as to indicate a real need for more research into the channels through which the family structure affects child development and educational outcomes. Now, his Rosenfeld, the original author, responded within the same year, I think, to the other guy. And he says, if we want to understand the effect of family structure on children's outcomes, we need to study children who were actually raised by the families in question rather than children who happened to live with the family at the time of the census. In Rosenfeld 2010, referencing the first study we read, I was very careful to include only children who lived with their current parents for at least 5 years because those children's current family structure influenced their progress through school. In their revision of my analysis, Allen et al. Preferred to analyze the outcomes of all children, regardless of how long they had lived with their current families. Allen et al. Therefore attributed to the current family at the time of the census child outcomes that may have been produced years before the current family was formed. Allen et al. Violated a fundamental rule of causal order, which is that later characteristics ought not to be used to predict earlier events. Child origins and the effect of family on children. Same-sex couples achieve parenthood in different ways than heterosexual couples do. Although heterosexual couples can reproduce on their own, same-sex couples cannot reproduce without assistance. Most children raised by same-sex couples are from a prior heterosexual relationship that has to break up before the same-sex couple parenting family is formed. Researchers documented many of the ways the parental breakup can cause negative short-term repercussions for children. Additionally, gay rights vary dramatically from state to state within the U.S., so same-sex couples with children have unique reasons for making interstate moves, and moving is disruptive to families and children, whether they are from a prior heterosexual relationship that is dissolved, or they are adopted from the pool of special needs children, or their parents have had to move to obtain rights that heterosexual couples take for granted. Children being raised by same-sex couples are more likely to start out with disadvantages. Heterosexual married couples have very dramatic legal and tax advantages that were unavailable to same-sex couples in the 1990s. When the children in the sample were in school. Furthermore, heterosexual married couples are usually both biological parents to the children, whereas same-sex couples cannot both be biological parents of any one child, despite the legal and social disadvantages and the discrimination that same-sex couples and their children. Okay. Wait, does he have a response to this response? The response is the 2013 interview in the article. Allen et al. Reached the conclusion that children in same-sex couple families fare worse in school by including all children, regardless of how long the child had lived with the family, and by including adopted and foster children along with the head of household's own children. Allen et al.'s finding of worse school performance by children living with same-sex couples is due to their conflating the initial disadvantage of children who come into same-sex couple families, a disadvantage that appears to be substantial, with the progress children experience during the time when they are actually being raised by same-sex couples, progress that is excellent. There is no statistically significant difference in making normal progress through school between children raised by same-sex couples and children raised by heterosexual married couples after family socioeconomic status is taken into account. Allen et al. Noted that even if the difference is not significant, the children of heterosexual married couples appear to be faring better. By the same logic, the children raised by unmarried heterosexual couples appear to be faring worse. The difference in grade retention is also a formal marriage. The parents is beneficial to children. If the goal of public policy maximizes children's chances of success, then perhaps the logical public policy prescription would be to extend marriage rights to same-sex couples in the United States. Okay, sorry. And then this. Okay, sorry, last thing. Fuck. The same-sex parenting really make no difference. Holy fuck, this. What is this? What is this called? Center justified? Or not justification. It's or no margins or whatever? What do you call when you click the button to do your indents like this? Despite the limited scientific validity of these studies, they all end with sweeping policy recommendations. It really is not scientific validity, rather public. Then came Michael Rosenfeld. That paper had a large random sample and looked at normal progression through schools in the U.S. It was, in my opinion, the first solid piece of statistical work done on the question. First, he didn't find no difference. What he found was a lot of noise, and so was unable to statistically distinguish, blah, 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 including ones who know. Precision. I don't understand this. What he found was a lot of noise. He was unable to statistically distinguish children in same-sex households from children in any other type of household, including ones we know are not good for children. Wait, who is he saying when he said he didn't find no difference? Is he talking about the Rosenfeld, or is he talking about himself? Price, Catherine Pakoluk, and myself replicated his study and found two problems. First, he didn't. I thought he did, but there were differences, no? That's 3. While this is going on, I was using the Canada Census to look at some other questions. I noticed several things, and the census differed from the U.S. First, unlike in the U.S., Canada Census actually identifies same-sex couples. Second, the Canada Census is a nice link between their children. Does he respond to the criticisms of the response to him, or? Hold on, okay. Whatever. Let's throw these here. Gay couple adopted children. Rosenfeld, 2010 study. Douglas W. Allen, 2012 study. Reply to Allen et al. By Rosenfeld, 2012. And Douglas Allen article. Okay. Good. Good side tangent. Fun. Jesus. Whew. My God. Damn. I don't fucking know anything about this. I thought Gnosticism just had to do with like knowledge that you can have about the existence of a higher power. I don't know. Fuck. Jeez. That's what I thought a Gnostic was. Gnosticism is a collection of religious ideas and systems that coalesced in the late 1st century AD among early Christian sects. These diverse groups emphasize personal spiritual knowledge, gnosis, above the proto-Orthodox teachings, traditions. Maybe this is included as part of it, I guess. Gnostic cosmogony generally presents a distinction between a supreme hidden God and a malevolent lesser divinity responsible for creating the material universe. Consequently, Gnostics considered material existence flawed or evil and held the principal element of salvation to be direct knowledge of the hidden divinity attained via mystical or esoteric insight. Many Gnostic texts deal not in concepts of sin and repentance, but with illusion and enlightenment. Okay.
Alternative view, which is called Gnosticism. It's a view that our bodies don't really have anything to do with who we are, that the body is maybe even evil, and that our true selves have no connection to our bodies. And I see in the transgender ideology.
I guess that could be a decent summary. Wait, fuck it. Let's ask the real God. Wait, what is the... Oh. I don't know what it is. Is there no entry for Gnosticism? Okay, well, fuck me. We're lost to sea.
A kind of Gnosticism.
Okay, okay.